Aung San Suu Kyi.
Aung San Suu Kyi AC is a Burmese opposition politician and chairperson of the National League for Democracy in Burma. In the 1990 general election, the NLD won 59% of the national votes and 81% of the seats in parliament. She had, however, already been detained under house arrest before the elections. She remained under house arrest in Burma for almost 15 of the 21 years from July 20, 1989 until her most recent release on November 13, 2010, becoming one of the world's most prominent political prisoners. Suu Kyi received the Rafto Prize and the Sakharov Prize for Freedom of Thought in 1990 and the Nobel Peace Prize in 1991. In 1992 she was awarded the Jawaharlal Nehru Award for International Understanding by the Government of India and the International Simon Bolivar Prize from the Government of Venezuela. In 2007, the Government of Canada made her an honorary citizen of that country, the fourth person ever to receive the honor. In 2011, she was awarded the Wallenberg Medal. On September 19, 2012, Aung San Suu Kyi was also presented with the Congressional Gold Medal, which is, along with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian honor in the United States. On April 1, 2012, her party, the National League for Democracy, announced that she was elected to the Phivlutur, the lower house of the Burmese parliament, representing the constituency of Kawhmu. Her party also won 43 of the 45 vacant seats in the lower house. The election results were confirmed by the official Electoral Commission the following day. On June 6, 2013, Suu Kyi announced on the World Economic Forum's website that she wants to run for the presidency in Myanmar's 2015 elections.
Name:
Aung San Suu Kyi, like other Burmese names, has no family name, but is only a personal name, in her case derived from three relatives, Aung San from her father, Suu from her paternal grandmother, and Kyi from her mother Khin Kyi. The Burmese refer to her as Daw Aung San Suu Kyi. Daw is not part of her name, but is a Burmese honorific like Madam for any older and revered woman, literally meaning aunt. They say Daw Suu and Ame Suu, Mother Suu, and even Auntie Suu, and also Dr. Suu Kyi. The foreign media refer to her as Ms. Suu Kyi, or Miss Suu Kyi.
Personal life.
Aung San Suu Kyi was born on June 19, 1945 in Rangoon, now named Yangon. Her father, Aung San, founded the modern Burmese army and negotiated Burma's independence from the British Empire in 1947. He was assassinated by his rivals in the same year. She grew up with her mother, Khin Kyi, and two brothers, Aung San Lin and Aung San U, in Rangoon. Aung San Lin died at the age of 8, when he drowned in an ornamental lake on the grounds of the house. Her elder brother emigrated to San Diego, California, becoming a United States citizen. After Aung San Lin's death, the family moved to a house by Anaya Lake where Suu Kyi met people of very different backgrounds, political views and religions. She was educated in Methodist English High School, now Basic Education High School No. 1 Dagon, for much of her childhood in Burma, where she was noted as having a talent for learning languages. She is a Theravada Buddhist. Suu Kyi's mother, Khin Kyi, gained prominence as a political figure in the newly formed Burmese government. She was appointed Burmese ambassador to India and Nepal in 1960, and Aung San Suu Kyi followed her there. She studied in the Convent of Jesus and Mary School in New Delhi, and graduated from Lady Shri Ram College in New Delhi with a degree in politics in 1964. Suu Kyi continued her education at St Hugh's College, Oxford, obtaining a BA degree in philosophy, politics and economics in 1969. After graduating, she lived in New York City with a family friend Mardhani, who was once a popular Burmese pop singer. She worked at the United Nations for 3 years, primarily on budget matters, writing daily to her future husband, Dr. Michael Arias. In late 1971, Aung San Suu Kyi married Arias, a scholar of Tibetan culture, living abroad in Bhutan. The following year she gave birth to their first son, Alexander Arias, in London. Their second son, Kim, was born in 1977. Between 1985 and 1987, Suu Kyi was working toward an M.Phil degree in Burmese literature as a research student at SOAS, the School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London. She was elected as an honorary fellow of SOAS in 1990. For 2 years she was a fellow at the Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, IIAS, in Shimla, India. She also worked for the government of the Union of Burma. In 1988 Suu Kyi returned to Burma, at first to tend for her ailing mother but later to lead the pro-democracy movement. Ari's visit in Christmas 1995 turned out to be the last time that he and Suu Kyi met, as Suu Kyi remained in Burma and the Burmese dictatorship denied him any further entry visas. Aris was diagnosed with prostate cancer in 1997, which was later found to be terminal. Despite appeals from prominent figures and organizations, including the United States, UN Secretary-General Kofi Annan and Pope John Paul II, the Burmese government would not grant Aris a visa, saying that they did not have the facilities to care for him, and instead urged Aung San Suu Kyi to leave the country to visit him. She was at the time temporarily free from house arrest but was unwilling to depart, fearing that she would be refused re-entry if she left, as she did not trust the military junta's assurance that she could return. Aris died on his 53rd birthday on March 27, 1999. Since 1989, when his wife was first placed under house arrest, he had seen her only 5 times, the last of which was for Christmas in 1995. She was also separated from her children, who live in the United Kingdom, but starting in 2011, they have visited her in Burma. On May 2, 2008, after Cyclone Nargis hit Burma, Suu Kyi lost the roof of her house and lived in virtual darkness after losing electricity in her dilapidated lakeside residence. She used candles at night as she was not provided any generator set. Plans to renovate and repair the house were announced in August 2009. Suu Kyi was released from house arrest on November 13, 2010.
Political beginnings.
Coincidentally, when Aung San Suu Kyi's return to Burma in 1988, the longtime military leader of Burma and head of the ruling party, General Ne Win, stepped down. Mass demonstrations for democracy followed that event on August 8, 1988, 8-8-88, a day seen as auspicious, which were violently suppressed in what came to be known as the 88-88 uprising. On August 26, 1988, she addressed 500,000 people at a mass rally in front of the Shwedagon Pagoda in the capital, calling for a democratic government. However, in September, a new military junta took power. Influenced by both Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy of non-violence and more specifically by Buddhist concepts, Aung San Suu Kyi entered politics to work for democratization, helped found the National League for Democracy on September 27, 1988, but was put under house arrest on July 20, 1989. Offered freedom if she left the country, she refused. One of her most famous speeches was Freedom from Fear, which began, "It is not power that corrupts, but fear. Fear of losing power corrupts those who wield it, and fear of the scourge of power corrupts those who are subject to it." She also believes fear spurs many world leaders to lose sight of their purpose. "Government leaders are amazing," she once said. "So often it seems they are the last to know what the people want."
Political career. 1990 general election.
In 1990, the military junta called a general election, in which the National League for Democracy, NLD, received 59% of the votes, guaranteeing NLD 80% of the parliament seats. Some claim that Aung San Suu Kyi would have assumed the office of Prime Minister. In fact, however, as she was not permitted, she did not stand as a candidate in the elections, although being OMP is not a strict prerequisite for becoming PM in most parliamentary systems. Instead, the results were nullified and the military refused to hand over power, resulting in an international outcry. Aung San Suu Kyi was placed under house arrest at her home on University Avenue, 16 Deg 4932 and 96 Deg 91E/16.82556 DEG and 96.15028 DEG/16.82556. 96.15028 in Rangoon, during which time she was awarded the Sakharov Prize for Freedom of Thought in 1990, and the Nobel Peace Prize the year after. Her sons Alexander and Kim accepted the Nobel Peace Prize on her behalf. Aung San Suu Kyi used the Nobel Peace Prize's $1.3 million prize money to establish a health and education trust for the Burmese people. Around this time, Suu Kyi chose non-violence as an expedient political tactic, stating in 2007, "I do not hold to non-violence for moral reasons, but for political and practical reasons. However, non-violent action as well as civil resistance in lieu of armed conflict are also political tactics in keeping with the overall philosophy of her Theravada Buddhist religion."
1996 attack.
On November 9, 1996, the motorcade that she was traveling in with other National League for Democracy leaders Tinu and Yuki Maung, was attacked in Yangon. About 200 men swooped down on the motorcade, wielding metal chains, metal batons, stones and other weapons. The car that Aung San Suu Kyi was in had its rear window smashed, and the car with Tinu and Yuki Maung had its rear window and two backdoor windows shattered. It is believed the offenders were members of the Union Solidarity and Development Association, USDA, who were allegedly paid 500 kyats, at USD 50 cents each to participate. The NLD lodged an official complaint with the police, and according to reports the government launched an investigation, but no action was taken. Amnesty International 120,297.
House arrest.
Aung San Suu Kyi has been placed under house arrest for 15 of the past 21 years, on numerous occasions, since she began her political career, during which time she was prevented from meeting her party supporters and international visitors. In an interview, Suu Kyi said that while under house arrest she spent her time reading philosophy, politics and biographies that her husband had sent her. She also passed the time playing the piano, and was occasionally allowed visits from foreign diplomats as well as from her personal physician. The media were also prevented from visiting Suu Kyi, as occurred in 1998 when journalist Maurizio Giuliano, after photographing her, was stopped by customs officials who then confiscated all his films, tapes and some notes. In contrast, Suu Kyi did have visits from government representatives, such as during her autumn 1994 house arrest when she met the leader of Burma, General N. Shwe and General Kin Yunt on September 20 in the first meeting since she had been placed in detention. On several occasions during Suu Kyi's house arrest, she had periods of poor health and as a result was hospitalized. The Burmese government detained and kept Suu Kyi in prison because it viewed her as someone likely to undermine the community peace and stability of the country, and used both Article 10(a) and 10(b) of the 1975 State Protection Act, granting the government the power to imprison people for up to 5 years without a trial, and Section 22 of the law to safeguard the state against the dangers of those desiring to cause subversive acts as legal tools against her. She continuously appealed her detention, and many nations and figures continued to call for her release and that of 2,100 other political prisoners in the country. On November 12, 2010, days after the junta-backed Union Solidarity and Development Party, USDP, won elections conducted after a gap of 20 years, the junta finally agreed to sign orders allowing Suu Kyi's release, and Suu Kyi's house arrest term came to an end on November 13, 2010.
United Nations involvement.
The United Nations, UN, has attempted to facilitate dialogue between the junta and Suu Kyi. On May 6, 2002, following secret confidence-building negotiations led by the UN, the government released her. A government spokesman said that she was free to move, because we are confident that we can trust each other. Aung San Suu Kyi proclaimed a new dawn for the country. However, on May 30, 2003, in an incident similar to the 1996 attack on her, a government-sponsored mob attacked her caravan in the northern village of Detained, murdering and wounding many of her supporters. Aung San Suu Kyi fled the scene with the help of her driver, Kyaw Aw Lin, but was arrested upon reaching EU. The government imprisoned her at Insein prison in Rangoon. After she underwent a hysterectomy in September 2003, the government again placed her under house arrest in Rangoon. The results from the UN facilitation have been mixed. Razali Ismail, UN Special Envoy to Burma, met with Aung San Suu Kyi. Ismail resigned from his post the following year, partly because he was denied re-entry to Burma on several occasions. Several years later in 2006, Ibrahim Gabari, UN Under-Secretary-General, USG, of Department of Political Affairs, met with Aung San Suu Kyi, the first visit by a foreign official since 2004. He also met with Suu Kyi later the same year. On October 2, 2007, Gabari returned to talk to her again after seeing the SHWE and other members of the senior leadership in Naypyidaw. State television broadcast Suu Kyi with Gabari, stating that they had met twice. This was Suu Kyi's first appearance in state media in the 4 years since her current detention began. The United Nations Working Group for Arbitrary Detention published an opinion that Aung San Suu Kyi's deprivation of liberty was arbitrary and in contravention of Article 9 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948, and requested that the authorities in Burma set her free, but the authorities ignored the request at that time. The UN report said that according to the Burmese government's reply, Aung San Suu Kyi has not been arrested, but has only been taken into protective custody, for her own safety, and while it could have instituted legal action against her under the country's domestic legislation, it has preferred to adopt a magnanimous attitude, and is providing her with protection in her own interests. Such claims were rejected by Brig General Kin Yi, Chief of Myanmar Police Force, MPF. On January 18, 2007, the state-run paper New Light of Myanmar accused Suu Kyi of tax evasion for spending her Nobel Prize money outside of the country. The accusation followed the defeat of a US-sponsored United Nations Security Council resolution condemning Burma as a threat to international security. The resolution was defeated because of strong opposition from China, which has strong ties with the military junta. China later voted against the resolution, along with Russia and South Africa. In November 2007, it was reported that Suu Kyi would meet her political allies National League for Democracy along with a government minister. The ruling junta made the official announcement on state TV and radio just hours after UN Special Envoy Ibrahim Gabari ended his second visit to Burma. The NLD confirmed that it had received the invitation to hold talks with Suu Kyi. However, the process delivered few concrete results. On July 3, 2009, UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon went to Burma to pressure the junta into releasing Suu Kyi and to institute democratic reform. However, on departing from Burma, Ban Ki-moon said he was disappointed with the visit after junta leader then SHWE refused permission for him to visit Suu Kyi, citing her ongoing trial. Ban said he was deeply disappointed that they have missed a very important opportunity.
Periods under detention.
July 20, 1989, placed under house arrest in Rangoon under martial law that allows for detention without charge or trial for 3 years. July 10, 1995, released from house arrest. September 23, 2000, placed under house arrest. May 6, 2002, released after 19 months. May 30, 2003, arrested following the Detained massacre. She was held in secret detention for more than 3 months before being returned to house arrest. May 25, 2007, house arrest extended by 1 year despite a direct appeal from UN Secretary-General Kofi Annan to General then SHWE. October 24, 2007, reached 12 years under house arrest. Solidarity protests held at 12 cities around the world. May 27, 2008, house arrest extended for another year, which is illegal under both international law and Burma's own law. August 11, 2009, house arrest extended for 18 more months because of violation arising from the May 2009 trespass incident. November 13, 2010, released from house arrest.
2007 anti-government protests.
Protests led by Buddhist monks began on August 19, 2007 following steep fuel price increases, and continued each day, despite the threat of a crackdown by the military. On September 22, 2007, although still under house arrest, Suu Kyi made a brief public appearance at the gate of her residence in Yangon to accept the blessings of Buddhist monks who were marching in support of human rights. It was reported that she had been moved the following day to Aung San prison, where she had been detained in 2003, but meetings with UN envoy Ibrahim Gabari near her Rangoon home on September 30 and October 2 established that she remained under house arrest.
2009 trespass incident.
On May 3, 2009, an American man, identified as John Yetor, swam across Anaya Lake to her house uninvited and was arrested when he made his return trip 3 days later. He had attempted to make a similar trip 2 years earlier, but for unknown reasons was turned away. He later claimed at trial that he was motivated by a divine vision requiring him to notify her of an impending terrorist assassination attempt. On May 13, Suu Kyi was arrested for violating the terms of her house arrest because the swimmer, who pleaded exhaustion, was allowed to stay in her house for 2 days before he attempted the swim back. Suu Kyi was later taken to Aung San prison, where she could have faced up to 5 years confinement for the intrusion. The trial of Suu Kyi and her 2 maids began on May 18 and a small number of protesters gathered outside. Diplomats and journalists were barred from attending the trial. However, on one occasion, several diplomats from Russia, Thailand and Singapore and journalists were allowed to meet Suu Kyi. The prosecution had originally planned to call 22 witnesses. It also accused John Yetor of embarrassing the country. During the ongoing defense case, Suu Kyi said she was innocent. The defense was allowed to call only 1 witness, out of 4, while the prosecution was permitted to call 14 witnesses. The court rejected 2 character witnesses, NLD members Tinu and Win Tin, and permitted the defense to call only a legal expert. According to one unconfirmed report, the junta was planning to, once again, place her in detention, this time in a military base outside the city. In a separate trial, Yetor said he swam to Suu Kyi's house to warn her that her life was in danger. The national police chief later confirmed that Yetor was the main culprit in the case filed against Suu Kyi. According to aides, Suu Kyi spent her 64th birthday in jail sharing biryani rice and chocolate cake with her guards. Her arrest and subsequent trial received worldwide condemnation by the UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon, the United Nations Security Council, Western governments, South Africa, Japan and the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, of which Burma is a member. The Burmese government strongly condemned the statement, as it created an unsound tradition, and criticized Thailand for meddling in its internal affairs. The Burmese Foreign Minister Nguyen Win was quoted in the state-run newspaper New Light of Myanmar as saying that the incident was trumped up to intensify international pressure on Burma by internal and external anti-government elements who do not wish to see the positive changes in those countries' policies toward Burma. Ban responded to an international campaign by flying to Burma to negotiate, but the SHWE rejected all of his requests. On August 11, 2009 the trial concluded with Suu Kyi being sentenced to imprisonment for 3 years with hard labor. This sentence was commuted by the military rulers to further house arrest of 18 months. On August 14, U.S. Senator Jim Webb visited Burma, visiting with junta leader General Than SHWE and later with Suu Kyi. During the visit, Webb negotiated Yetor's release and deportation from Burma. Following the verdict of the trial, lawyers of Suu Kyi said they would appeal against the 18-month sentence. On August 18, United States President Barack Obama asked the country's military leadership to set free all political prisoners, including Aung San Suu Kyi. In her appeal, Aung San Suu Kyi had argued that the conviction was unwarranted. However, her appeal against the August sentence was rejected by a Burmese court on October 2, 2009. Although the court accepted the argument that the 1974 constitution, under which he had been charged, was null and void. It also said the provisions of the 1975 security law, under which he had been kept under house arrest, remained in force. The verdict effectively meant that she would be unable to participate in the elections scheduled to take place in 2010, the first in Burma in 2 decades. Her lawyer stated that her legal team would pursue a new appeal within 60 days.
2009, international pressure for release in 2010 Burmese general election.
It was announced prior to the Burmese general election that Aung San Suu Kyi may be released so she can organize her party. However, Suu Kyi was not allowed to run. On October 1, 2010 the government announced that she would be released on November 13, 2010. U.S. President Barack Obama personally advocated the release of all political prisoners, especially Aung San Suu Kyi, during the US-ASEAN summit of 2009. The U.S. government hoped that successful general elections would be an optimistic indicator of the Burmese government's sincerity towards eventual democracy. The Hatayama government, which spent 2.82 billion yen in 2008, has promised more Japanese foreign aid to encourage Burma to release Aung San Suu Kyi in time for the elections, and to continue moving towards democracy and the rule of law. In a personal letter to Suu Kyi, UK Prime Minister Gordon Brown cautioned the Burmese government of the potential consequences of rigging elections, condemning Burma to more years of diplomatic isolation and economic stagnation. Suu Kyi has met with many heads of state, and opened a dialogue with the Minister of Labour Aung Kyi, not to be confused with Aung San Suu Kyi. She was allowed to meet with senior members of her NLD party at the State House, however these meetings took place under close supervision.
2010 release.
On the evening of November 13, 2010, Suu Kyi was released from house arrest. This was the date her detention had been set to expire according to a court ruling in August 2009 and came 6 days after a widely criticized general election. She appeared in front of a crowd of her supporters, who rushed to her house in Rangoon when nearby barricades were removed by the security forces. The Nobel Peace Prize laureate had been detained for 15 of the past 21 years. The government newspaper New Light of Myanmar reported the release positively, saying she had been granted a pardon after serving her sentence in good conduct. The New York Times suggested that the military government may have released Suu Kyi because it felt it was in a confident position to control her supporters after the election. The role that Suu Kyi will play in the future of democracy in Burma remains a subject of much debate. Her son Kim Aris was granted a visa in November 2010 to see his mother shortly after her release, for the first time in 10 years. He visited again in July 5, 2011, to accompany her on a trip to Bagan, her first trip outside Yangon since 2003. Her son visited again in August 8, 2011, to accompany her on a trip to Pegu, her second trip. Discussions were held between Suu Kyi and the Burmese government during 2011, which led to a number of official gestures to meet her demands. In October, around a tenth of Burma's political prisoners were freed and an amnesty and trade unions were legalized. In November 2011, following a meeting of its leaders, the NLD announced its intention to re-register as a political party in order to contend 48 by-elections necessitated by the promotion of parliamentarians to ministerial rank. Following the decision, Suu Kyi held a telephone conference with U.S. President Barack Obama, in which it was agreed that Secretary of State Hillary Clinton would make a visit to Burma, a move received with caution by Burma's ally China. On December 1, 2011, Suu Kyi met with Hillary Clinton at the residence of the top-ranking U.S. diplomat in Yangon. On December 21, 2011, Thai Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra met Suu Kyi in Yangon, becoming Suu Kyi's first-ever meeting with the leader of a foreign country. On January 5, 2012, British Foreign Minister William Hague met Aung San Suu Kyi and his Burmese counterpart. This represented a significant visit for Suu Kyi and Burma. Suu Kyi studied in the UK and maintains many ties there, whilst Britain is Burma's largest bilateral donor. Aung San Suu Kyi is on her visit to Europe and is due to visit the Swiss Parliament and collect her 1991 Nobel Prize in Oslo.
2012 by-elections.
In December 2011, there was speculation that Suu Kyi would run in the 2012 national by-elections to fill vacant seats. On January 18, 2012, Suu Kyi formally registered to contest a Paithu lower house, seat in the Kawhmu Township constituency in special parliamentary elections to be held on April 1, 2012. The seat was previously held by So Tint, who vacated it after being appointed Construction Deputy Minister, in the 2010 election. She ran against Union Solidarity and Development Party candidate So Min, a retired army physician and native of Twenty Township. On March 3, 2012, at a large campaign rally in Mandalay, Suu Kyi unexpectedly left after 15 minutes, because of exhaustion and air sickness. In an official campaign speech broadcast on Burmese state television's MRTV on March 14, 2012, Suu Kyi publicly campaigned for reform of the 2008 constitution, removal of restrictive laws, more adequate protections for people's democratic rights, and establishment of an independent judiciary. The speech was leaked online a day before it was broadcast. A paragraph in the speech, focusing on the Tatmada's repression by means of law, was censored by authorities. Suu Kyi has also called for international media to monitor the upcoming by-elections, while publicly pointing out irregularities in official voter lists, which include deceased individuals and exclude other eligible voters in the contested constituencies. On March 21, 2012, Aung San Suu Kyi was quoted as saying fraud and rule violations are continuing and we can even say they are increasing. When asked whether she would assume a ministerial post if given the opportunity, she said the following. On March 26, 2012, Suu Kyi suspended her nationwide campaign tour early, after a campaign rally in Mugai, a coastal town in the south, citing health problems due to exhaustion and hot weather. On April 1, 2012, the NLD announced that Suu Kyi had won the vote for a seat in parliament. A news broadcast on state-run MRTV, reading the announcements of the Union Election Commission, confirmed her victory, as well as her party's victory in 43 of the 45 contested seats, officially making Suu Kyi the leader of the opposition in the lower house. Although she and other MP-elects were expected to take office on April 23 when the Luthols resumed session, National League for Democracy MP-elects, including Suu Kyi, said they might not take their oaths because of its wording. In its present form, parliamentarians must vow to safeguard the Constitution. In an address on Radio Free Asia, she said we don't mean we will not attend the parliament, we mean we will attend only after taking the oath. Changing that wording in the oath is also in conformity with the Constitution. I don't expect there will be any difficulty in doing it. On May 2, 2012, National League for Democracy MP-elects, including Aung San Suu Kyi, took their oaths and took office, though the wording of the oath was not changed. According to the Los Angeles Times, Suu Kyi and her colleagues decided they could do more by joining as lawmakers than maintaining their boycott on principle. On July 9, 2012, she attended the parliament for the first time as a lawmaker. On July 6, 2012, Suu Kyi announced on the World Economic Forum's website that she wants to run for the presidency in Myanmar's 2015 elections. The current constitution, which came into effect in 2008, bars her from the presidency because she is the widow and mother of foreigners. These measures seem to have been written in part to prevent her ever getting there.
Rohingya controversy.
Some activists criticized Aung San Suu Kyi for her silence on the 2012 Rakhine state riots. After receiving a Peace Prize, she told reporters she did not know if the Rohingya could be regarded as Burmese citizens. Under the 1982 citizenship law, most Rohingya are unable to qualify for Burmese citizenship. As such, they are treated as illegal immigrants, with restrictions on their movement and withholding of land rights, education and public service. Some describe her stance as politically motivated. However, she said that she wanted to work towards reconciliation and that she cannot take sides as violence has been committed by both sides. According to The Economist, her halo has even slipped among foreign human rights lobbyists, disappointed at her failure to make a clear stand on behalf of the Rohingya minority. However, she has spoken out against a ban on Rohingya families near the Bangladeshi border having more than 2 children.
Political belief.
Asked what democratic models Myanmar could look to, she said, "We have many, many lessons to learn from various places, not just the Asian countries like South Korea, Taiwan, Mongolia and Indonesia." She also cited the Eastern European countries, which made the transition from communist autocracy to democracy in the 1980s and 1990s, and the Latin American countries, which made the transition from military governments. And we cannot of course forget South Africa, because although it wasn't a military regime, it was certainly an authoritarian regime. She added, "We wish to learn from everybody who has achieved a transition to democracy, and also, our great strong point is that, because we are so far behind everybody else, we can also learn which mistakes we should avoid." In a nod to the current deep U.S. political divide between Republicans led by Mitt Romney and the Democrats of Obama, battling to win the presidential election on November 6, she stressed with a smile, "Those of you who are familiar with American politics I'm sure understand the need for negotiated compromise."
International support.
Aung San Suu Kyi has received vocal support from Western nations in Europe, Australia and North and South America, as well as India, Israel, Japan, the Philippines and South Korea. In December 2007, the U.S. House of Representatives voted unanimously 400-0 to award Aung San Suu Kyi the Congressional Gold Medal. The Senate concurred on April 25, 2008. On May 6, 2008, President George Bush signed legislation awarding Suu Kyi the Congressional Gold Medal. She is the first recipient in American history to receive the prize while imprisoned. More recently, there has been growing criticism of her detention by Burma's neighbors in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, particularly from Indonesia, Thailand, the Philippines and Singapore. At one point Malaysia warned Burma that it faced expulsion from ASEAN as a result of the detention of Suu Kyi. Other nations including South Africa, Bangladesh and the Maldives also called for her release. The United Nations has urged the country to move towards inclusive national reconciliation, the restoration of democracy, and full respect for human rights. In December 2008, the United Nations General Assembly passed a resolution condemning the human rights situation in Burma and calling for Suu Kyi's release, 80 countries voting for the resolution, 25 against and 45 abstentions. Other nations, such as China and Russia, are less critical of the regime and prefer to cooperate only on economic matters. Indonesia has urged China to push Burma for reforms. However, Samak Sundaravaj, former Prime Minister of Thailand, criticized the amount of support for Suu Kyi, saying that Europe uses Aung San Suu Kyi as a tool. "If it's not related to Aung San Suu Kyi, you can have deeper discussions with Myanmar." Vietnam, however, did not support calls by other ASEAN member states for Myanmar to free Aung San Suu Kyi, state media reported Friday 14 August 2009. The state-run Vietnam News said Vietnam had no criticism of Myanmar's decision August 11, 2009 to place Suu Kyi under house arrest for the next 18 months, effectively barring her from elections scheduled for 2010. "It is our view that the Aung San Suu Kyi trial is an internal affair of Myanmar," Vietnamese government spokesman Le Dung stated on the website of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. In contrast with other ASEAN member states, Dung said Vietnam has always supported Myanmar and hopes it will continue to implement the roadmap to democracy outlined by its government. Aung San Suu Kyi was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1991. The decision of the Nobel Committee mentions. In 1995 Aung San Suu Kyi delivered the keynote address at the Fourth World Conference on Women in Beijing. Nobel Peace Prize winners, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, the Dalai Lama, Shirin Ebadi, Adolfo Perez Esquivel, Mary Corrigan, Rigobert Menku, Professor Elie Wiesel, U.S. President Barack Obama, Betty Williams, Jody Williams and former U.S. President Jimmy Carter, called for the rulers of Burma to release Suu Kyi in order to create the necessary conditions for a genuine dialogue with Aung San Suu Kyi and all concerned parties and ethnic groups in order to achieve an inclusive national reconciliation with the direct support of the United Nations. Some of the money she received as part of the awards helps fund London-based charity Prospect Burma, which provides higher education grants to Burmese students. On June 16, 2012, Aung San Suu Kyi was finally able to deliver her Nobel acceptance speech, Nobel Lecture, at Oslo's City Hall, 2 decades after being awarded the Peace Prize. In September 2012, Aung San Suu Kyi received in person the United States Congressional Gold Medal, which is the highest congressional award. Although she was awarded this medal in 2008, at the time she was under house arrest, and was unable to receive the medal. Aung San Suu Kyi was greeted with bipartisan support at Congress, as part of a coast-to-coast tour in the United States. In addition, Aung San Suu Kyi met President Barack Obama at the White House. The experience was described by Aung San Suu Kyi as one of the most moving days of my life.
Organizations.
Freedom Now, a Washington, D.C.-based non-profit organization, was retained in 2006 by a member of her family to help secure Aung San Suu Kyi's release from house arrest. The organization secured several opinions from the UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention that her detention was in violation of international law. Engaged in political advocacy such as spearheading a letter from 112 former presidents and prime ministers to UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon urging him to go to Burma to seek her release, which he did 6 weeks later. And published numerous op-eds and spoke widely to the media about her ongoing detention. Its representation of her ended when she was released from house arrest on November 13, 2010. Aung San Suu Kyi has been an honorary board member of International IDEA and Article 19 since her detention, and has received support from these organizations, the Vrije Universiteit Brussels and the Universiteit Katholiek de Leuven, both located in Belgium, granted her the title of Doctor Honoris Causa. In 2003, the Freedom Forum recognized Suu Kyi's efforts to promote democracy peacefully with the Al-Nuha Free Spirit of the Year award, in which she was presented over satellite because she was under house arrest. She was awarded $1 million. In June of each year, the U.S. Campaign for Burma organizes hundreds of Arrest Yourself house parties around the world in support of Aung San Suu Kyi. At these parties, the organizers keep themselves under house arrest for 24 hours, invite their friends, and learn more about Burma and Aung San Suu Kyi. The Freedom Campaign, a joint effort between the Human Rights Action Center and U.S. Campaign for Burma, looks to raise worldwide attention to the struggles of Aung San Suu Kyi and the people of Burma. The Burma Campaign UK is a UK-based NGO, non-governmental organization, that aims to raise awareness of Burma's struggles and follow the guidelines established by the NLD and Aung San Suu Kyi. St Hugh's College, Oxford, where she studied, had a Burmese theme for their annual ball in support of her in 2006. The university later awarded her an honorary doctorate in civil law on June 20, 2012 during her visitation on her alma mater. Aung San Suu Kyi is the official patron of the Rafto Human Rights House in Bergen, Norway. She received the Thorolf Rafto Memorial Prize in 1990. She was made an honorary free person of the City of Dublin, Ireland in November 1999, although a space had been left on the roll of signatures to symbolize her continued detention. In November 2005 the human rights group Equality Now proposed Aung San Suu Kyi as a potential candidate, among other qualifying women, for the position of UN Secretary-General. In the proposed list of qualified women Suu Kyi is recognized by Equality Now as the Prime Minister-elect of Burma. The Union's Special Envoy to Myanmar, Ibrahim Gabari, met Aung San Suu Kyi on March 10, 2008 before wrapping up his trip to the military-ruled country. Aung San Suu Kyi was an honorary member of the Elders, a group of eminent global leaders brought together by Nelson Mandela. Her ongoing detention meant that she was unable to take an active role in the group, so the Elders placed an empty chair for her at their meetings. the elders have consistently called for the release of all political prisoners in Burma. Upon her election to parliament, she stepped down from her post. In 2008, Burma's devoted human rights leader and Nobel Peace Prize winner, was welcomed as Club of Madrid honorary member. In 2010, Aung San Suu Kyi was given an honorary doctorate from the University of Johannesburg. In 2011, Aung San Suu Kyi was named the guest director of the 45th Brighton Festival. She was part of the international jury of human rights defenders and personalities who helped to choose a universal logo for human rights in 2011. In June 2011, the BBC announced that Aung San Suu Kyi was to deliver the 2011 Wreath Lectures. The BBC covertly recorded 2 lectures with Aung San Suu Kyi in Burma, which were then smuggled out of the country and brought back to London. The lectures were broadcast on BBC Radio 4 and the BBC World Service on June 28, 2011 and July 5, 2011. In November 2011, Suu Kyi received François Emery, France's ambassador for human rights. March 8, 2012. Canadian Foreign Affairs Minister John Baird presented Aung San Suu Kyi a certificate of honorary Canadian citizenship and an informal invitation to visit Canada. In April 2012, British Prime Minister David Cameron became the first leader of a major world power to visit Aung San Suu Kyi and the first of a British Prime Minister since the 1950s. In his visit, Cameron invited San Suu Kyi to Britain where she would be able to visit her beloved Oxford, an invitation which she later accepted. She visited Britain on June 19, 2012. In May 2012, Suu Kyi received the inaugural Václav Havel Prize for Creative Dissent of the Human Rights Foundation. May 29, 2012 PM Manmohan Singh of India visited Aung San Suu Kyi. In his visit, PM invited Aung San Suu Kyi to India as well. She started her 6-day visit to India on November 16, 2012 where among the places she visited was her alma mater Lady Shri Ram College in New Delhi. Seoul National University in South Korea conferred an honorary doctorate degree to Aung San Suu Kyi in February 2013. University of Bologna, Italy conferred an honorary doctorate degree in philosophy to Aung San Suu Kyi in October 2013. Monash University, the Australian National University, University of Sydney and University of Technology, Sydney conferred an honorary degree to Aung San Suu Kyi in November 2013.
Health problems.
She had surgery for a gynecological condition in September 2003 at Asia Royal Hospital during her house arrest. She had undergone a minor foot surgery in December 2013. Her doctor said that she has no serious health problems but weighs only 48 kilograms, has low blood pressure and can become weak easily.
Deportation of Michelle Yeoh.
On June 22, 2011, the actress Michelle Yeoh arrived in and, on the same day, was deported from Burma because she was on a blacklist, allegedly over a new film The Lady, in which Yeoh portrays Burmese pro-democracy leader Aung San Suu Kyi.